Private Ryder Raven Jackson had been walking for hours, his combat boots heavy with mud and his mind reeling from the horrors he'd witnessed in the trenches of World War II. His unit, the 101st Infantry Regiment, had taken heavy casualties during the Allied push into Normandy, and Ryder was one of the lucky ones. He'd managed to escape with a few shrapnel wounds and a bad case of shell shock. As he trudged through the deserted French countryside, his senses began to blur. He stumbled upon an abandoned trench system, overgrown with weeds and vines that seemed to writhe like living things. The rusty barbed wire snagged at his clothes, but Ryder didn't stop to free himself. He kept moving, driven by a growing sense of unease. It started with small things, the creaking of wooden stakes, the rustling of leaves in the wind. But as Ryder descended deeper into the trench system, he began to hear footsteps, heavy, deliberate steps that echoed through the empty tunnels like a death knell. He tried to convince himself it was just his imagination playing tricks on him, but deep down, Ryder knew he wasn't alone. The air grew thick with an unholy presence, like a cold fog that clung to his skin. As he peered into the darkness ahead, a figure began to materialize. It was a soldier, dressed in a worn and tattered World War II uniform, his helmet cocked at an impossible angle on his head. His eyes, two empty sockets, stared back at Ryder with a malevolent intensity. "Charlie Company," the ghostly soldier whispered, its voice like a draft from beyond the grave. "We never made it out of 44. As the words echoed through the trenches, Ryder's mind reeled. He knew of Charlie Company, a unit that had been wiped out in one of the war's most brutal battles. The soldiers who'd perished were said to haunt these very trenches, forever trapped in their own private hell. The ghost soldier drew closer still, its presence suffocating Ryder with an unrelenting malevolence. He tried to flee, but his legs were rooted to the spot. "We never made it out of 44, the specter repeated, its voice growing louder, more urgent. "We're still here, waiting for the next battle." As Ryder's sanity began to unravel, the ghost soldier vanished into thin air, leaving him alone in the darkness. The sound of shuffling footsteps faded away, replaced by an unearthly silence. When dawn broke, Ryder stumbled out of the trench system, his mind shattered by the encounter with the Lost Platoon. He was never seen or heard from again, and the legend grew that on certain nights when the wind whispers through the Normandy battlefields, you can still hear the echoes of Charlie Company, marching to a war that will never end.